and I'm quitting alcohol. So yesterday I posted on social media just a little photo of me in my high-vis fluorescent work shirt, just giving the lads who were in the fucking protests/riots yesterday just a little bit of Boyle support. Just saying I was there in spirit. I'm going to jump on the glass Barbie tonight in honor of you. The glass Barbie being meth. The meth pipe. It's the slang Australians use for the meth pipe. The glass Barbie. Glass barbecue. I also got sent a couple of other good Australian nicknames for the meth pipe. The see-through didgeridoo and the old crystal clarinet. That's pretty good. They are some pretty good nicknames for the meth pipe. Anyway, that's not the fucking point. I put this post up on social media. It was innocuous as fuck. It was half joke. It was half earnest. It was probably 98% earnest, 2% joke. And then my followers on Instagram and Facebook just started rapidly declining. I'm like, who the fuck doesn't know my stance on these issues? So I was like, it can't be any of the listeners of this podcast because you all know my stance on just about every subject there is. And it was none of my actual friends, my real life friends, because most of them were at the protests and rioting. So the only group of people left were fucking comedians. And that's who it was. Humorless, fucking self-righteous, unfunny, fucking retarded comedians. You know the types of comedians that make a political fucking point before they're fucking funny ever. I know most of the comedians who it was who unfollowed me. It was the unfunny ones generally. I just guessed. I came up with some names and I'm like, I wonder if they still follow me because they were yesterday. So I typed in a few comedians' names. Gone. I'm like, you fucking dumb cunts. Who the fuck unfollows someone or doesn't speak to someone because they disagree with them? I disagree with everyone about everything. According to my whims, it is. But I certainly don't give a fuck what people say. Just say whatever the fuck you want. But what happens is if you stop talking to people that have different opinions to you, you create your own little fucking self-fulfilling bubble where you're right all the time and no one fucking challenges you. That's what happens. Everyone goes into their little fucking bubble. Their own little fucking I am right bubble. Despite the fact no one has any fucking idea what's going on about anything, they're right. These little fucking self-righteous dweebs, I just feel like smashing them in the fucking face. I've started meditating again as well. I'm 3 days back into meditating. The anger's still on the fucking surface. I'm telling you, I just fucking hate people that have a different opinion to me that think they're fucking right. And I know that sounds almost exactly the same thing as I'm getting angry at these cunts about, but it's not. Do you know why? Because it's coming from me. But I find it astounding. I find it fucking mind-blowing that anyone has any degree of certainty about anything. And I'm talking about anything, not just about what's going on at the moment. Anything. There's no right or wrong ever. All you have is your fucking dumb fucking interpretation of the story. And I was going to say narrative, but one of my mates messaged me and said, what the fuck are you saying narrative so much for, you fucking retard? So the story. That's all there is. Your interpretation, come to with your fucking peanut head. I'm talking about myself here too. I don't think I'm right about anything. There's a difference between thinking and knowing. I know I'm right on just about everything. All I need is time and this fucking podcast and I'll be vindicated. You'll be able to go back and see where I was right everywhere. Anyway, I didn't like any of the comedians that unfollowed me anyway, except one. But he had other reasons to unfollow me as well. I was on a knife's edge with him because one night at the festival, I took too many pills and had too many drinks and just harassed him all night. I was being a cunt, so he unfollowed me, but the rest of them can suck my fucking balls. Anyway, let's move on to this week's Boyle Breaks History. I'm doing the podcast late today because I've been waiting for someone to die so I didn't have to do Boyle Breaks History. It really is like doing homework for me now. I was going to start a new segment today called Conspiracy Cop. But the thing is, with conspiracies, you've got to look at all the angles. I'll tell you what I was looking at. I was looking at the conspiracy that Paul McCartney had died. And there was just too much bullshit. I couldn't get into it. So apparently Paul McCartney died in 1966 or some shit like that. Apparently he had a fight with the rest of the Beatles and on his drive to some party totaled his car. But he wasn't in it. Some guy named Muhammad, who was a drug dealer, was in it. Paul McCartney survived, but they think he was actually in the car. It was a big M15 cover-up. And not long after that, they had a Paul McCartney lookalike competition and just swapped him straight out. So there was rumors going around for a little while that Paul McCartney had died. They sort of fucking died away. And then some dude wrote an article because he'd been fucking finding clues on the album cover of like the Sgt. Pepper's album. And so someone picked up that article and a radio host or some shit read it out. And then some fucking college student called into that radio show and said, if you play number 9 from the White Album or something, I don't know what album it is, the White Album, if you play it backwards, it says something like, turn me on, dead man, or some shit, turn me on, dead man, which it does. But the whole Paul McCartney conspiracy is basically cunts in the 60s were getting way too fucking stoned. So Conspiracy Cop says, Paul McCartney's still alive, not guilty. That's how I would have done it, even though I just did it then. But that's not what I was meant to do. What I was meant to do is Boyle Breaks History, the Dresden Bombings. So the Dresden Bombings, the first time I ever heard about that was from Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse Number 5. I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? But Kurt Vonnegut, the writer, he was a prisoner of war in Dresden at the time of the Dresden Bombings. And he was like, it was the most vile, horrific thing the world has ever seen. So the Dresden Bombings was basically the English and the US carpet bombed Dresden over a 3-day period, 4 attacks, like 1,400 heavy bombers, the heavy fuckers, dropped 3,900 tons of bombs and incendiary fucking bombs or whatever they are called on Dresden during World War II and just fucking leveled the joint. At the time they said like 200,000 dead, but they've revised it to like 25,000. But if you listen to the cunts that were there, they're like, it was more than 25,000. And that's who you have to listen to, the cunts that were there. The old English people that survived there, the English soldiers that were prisoners of war. That's who you got to listen to, because you listen to the historians and the people from the news, they're like, it was a strategic strike, it had to be done. But these old soldiers are like, it was a war crime. This old English guy in particular, he's like, there were no soldiers there. It was just the elderly, women and children. It wasn't a strategic post. He's like, it was just a fucking war crime. And then you go to the news because it was 75 years ago last year. For the standards of the time, I think we can all agree that it was not a war crime. And then some other cunt jumps in like, what about now? Oh, definitely in modern times it would be considered a war crime. Definitely. It's like, yeah. All right. So yeah, that's what the Dresden bombing was. The US and the English carpet bombed the civilian population in Dresden for 3 days. Most people suffocated from the firestorm from the bombs. Tell you who I'd like to firebomb? Some fucking Melbourne comedians. Anyway, that brings to a conclusion Boyle Breaks History for this week. The podcast I did with the great Andrew Roberts will be up on the Patreon sometime tonight. So if you want to join the Patreon to support the podcast and listen to how Bogan Jesus tried to drown his own dog because the vet wouldn't let him in without a mask. Now that's some fucking backbone. I hope that doesn't sound like he was trying to murder his dog. No, his dog had cancer and they were going to put it down and they wouldn't let him in with a mask. Anyway, if you want to listen to that, join the Patreon. The links are in my social media bio, or just message me and I'll send it directly to you. That's it for tonight and I'll see you the fuck later.